The year is 1986, and Princess Koriand'r, better known as Starfire of Tamaran, has returned to Earth. She has just completed her political marriage of Prince Karas, but it is a marriage of the state and nothing more, something that her friend, teammate, and lover, Dick Grayson, can't accept, and yet she misses him still, along with her other friends and teammates on the Teen Titans. But it will be a while before she reunites with any of them, for she has not landed in New York City. Instead, she finds herself in the gold and sapphire warm skies of South Africa, flying above emerald seas and lush green trees. And among the calm beauty of nature, there erupts chaos. Starfire's thoughts of her one true love are interrupted by screams, the hunters, and the prey. A group of dark bronze-skinned people all surround a woman in a frenzy as they dump gasoline on her and set her ablaze. Starfire has no idea where on Earth she is, nor does she know the reason behind this attack, but it doesn't matter to her. All that matters is saving this woman's life. A few carefully aimed blasts of star bolts are more than enough to disperse the crowd. But before she can begin to put the fire out, a jeep full of soldiers arrives, and further subdue the crowd with the butts of their rifles. When that fails, the echo of automatic rifle fire can be heard for miles. Starfire lands and puts the fire out, but it's far too late to save her, a result that the military police couldn't possibly care less about. Starfire is sure now that she's nowhere near her home on Earth. All they say is that the dead woman was an informer, or at least the so-called animals believed her to be so. One of the soldiers recognizes Starfire as a member of the Teen Titans. He further informs Starfire of the local condition. According to him, the blacks of this location are far different than those in America. He accuses them of committing atrocities, even though they cry for equal rights. Finally, the Tamaranian learns that she is now in South Africa, and she has just been introduced to the system of Apartheid. As Starfire climbs into a jeep and rides with the military police, she looks and sees to her horror that the assault continues. But the leader ensures her that this is all necessary in order to make them behave. Starfire can't believe what she's hearing. She knows in her heart that people are the same, and that such force is being used without provocation. The military's peculiar form of justice continues to be doled out before Koriand'r's eyes. A black man is found without his passbook, something that all blacks are required to have in order to traffic in this land. Without one, he is arrested with extreme prejudice. The jeep stops, having arrived at its destination, and Starfire is immediately stopped by the press, peppered with questions. Do the Teen Titans support apartheid? When she asks what these words mean, the head officer uses her naivete against her. He says they simply want to know why he stopped the riot. Starfire answers as innocently as she's ever answered any question. She supports the stop of murder. Inside, Starfire's questions continue. She wants to know about these passbooks, and why the blacks aren't permitted to come and go as they please if this is their land. In all of Starfire's time on Earth, she's never committed any time to learning about its history. And now, those with power are using that fact against her. The captain says that the blacks of South Africa wanted their freedom, so they were moved out of South Africa into independent homelands. But the white South Africans oversee it all. He echoes the sentiments from the police earlier, claiming that the blacks are like children, unable to understand the complexities of government and politics. All Starfire can think of in the moment are the many black people she knows at home, friends of hers, leaders, and scientists. But these are American blacks, not savage like these ones. And in his words, they prefer to live in such states of squalor, to live as savages. But Starfire just can't understand. She may be naive about Earth, but she is not stupid. Moreover, she's familiar with the words of tyrants, and political evil is something she knows all too well. The captain offers to reward her for her so-called help, and Starfire replies with a starbolt. She's been taken advantage of more than enough times in her life, and she's not about to have it done again. For if they truly cared about her and wanted to thank her, why was that guard's rifle trained on her in the first place? The guards are lucky. If they had crossed Starfire in her first days on Earth, she would have taken their heads or blasted holes straight through their chests. Though unconscious, they'll recover. Starfire has another mission, to tell the truth, but her departure is stopped by the sound of screams. She hears cruel voices threaten to electrocute somebody, and those voices are coming from just behind this steel door. Now she's bearing witness to government-sanctioned torture. She sees now that Tamaran and Earth have more in common than she once knew. So much beauty, corrupted by so much ugliness. She grabs the last remaining guard by his face, applying just enough force to draw blood from his nose. And with a flick of her wrist, the guard is thrown against the wall and knocked unconscious. She frees the man who had been tortured, his naked body covered in bruises and cuts. Before losing consciousness, he mutters a simple message. He did not tell them where Mandutu is. She takes her leave, thinking about the stories Dick once told her about World War II. She thought that people would learn from such atrocities. She was wrong. As she leaves, she spots more prisoners and frees them. Until this moment, Starfire never cared about the political goings-on of the planet Earth, but she knows that that day must end. If not, then she runs the risk of becoming just like her father, who unwittingly helped ruin her world by caving in to their enemies instead of fighting for what was right. Santo directs her to a slum full of simple houses crafted of aluminum, nothing like anything she's seen of Earth. The people here recognize Starfire and call her out as an enemy, but Santo tries to calm them down. And soon, a powerful and respected voice comes from behind, echoing his sentiments. The voice of Father Nelson Mandutu himself. He's gotten words from his friends in the city about Starfire's rescue mission. With Santo receiving the help he desperately needs, Mandutu continues to update Starfire about the real conditions here. These facts fly in the face of the propaganda that the police captain told her. These people were not merely relocated, but forced from their land. The more she learns about Apartheid, the less she understands. But Mandutu tells her there's no sense of trying. For every white person, there are 24 black people, and this land is their original home. This is the plight that drives the blacks of South Africa to violence and radicalism. Father Mandutu doesn't agree with violence, but in such conditions, oftentimes, words are not sufficient. Starfire still can't understand. Why would a peace-loving man be the target of the police? He's a target because he preaches peace, while also telling the truth, and that makes him a threat to their rule. The Afrikaners fear that if the blacks gain freedom, they will lose theirs, an all-too-common refrain on planet Earth. Thus ends Starfire's first lesson in Apartheid, and after she's gotten some sleep, lesson 2 will begin. The following day, Mandutu wakes Starfire up. She only slept 4 hours, but that's more than most blacks do in these conditions. They'll be riding a bus, a 5-hour-long commute to work. While en route to the city, Starfire notices that many people sleep standing up. They dare not stay in their bed even a minute longer, or they risk being late to work and fired. They are overworked, underpaid, and undereducated. All things that the Father Mandutu seeks to change. Starfire now is more confused than ever. All these new terms, blacks, coloreds, Asians. On Tamaran, everyone is their own unique person, and all are equally Tamaranian. Nothing here makes sense. But finally, Starfire sees something that makes sense, as Father Mandutu is greeted warmly by other blacks within the city. She sees that he is a man of respect, in word and in deed. She flies off, hoping that a soar through the skies will help her mind accept the absurd conditions of this land. But as she flies overhead, she looks down to see the chaos continue, as police officers spray crowds of blacks with fire hoses. Starfire can't continue to watch human lives be so disregarded. So she does a 180 and returns to the church, only to find that she has made a grave mistake. In her absence, the police have stormed into the church and destroyed it. All of its members attacked, and Father Mandutu taken. As she zeroes in on his location, she finds a small squadron armed with a tank. Finally, an excuse to truly let her powers be known. She warns the people inside to abandon their mission and their weapons. Guns, tanks, all of them useless against her and helpless against her might. But amidst the smoldering remains of weapons and twisted metal, Starfire makes a terrible discovery: the body of Father Nelson Mandutu. An officer claims they were merely going to question him, but in her blind rage, Starfire has killed him. Starfire freezes, and the world watches. At the moment she's come to finally understand the plight of the blacks of South Africa, she has delivered a terrible blow to them. The officer calls for her arrest, but she refuses. She vowed never to let herself be taken captive again, so she flies off to think. Shots ring out as the officers fire their sidearms, but as usual, they are ineffective. Self-loathing takes hold as she flies higher into the sky. It seems that every time she tries to help someone, things go wrong, just as they did on Tamaran not too long ago. The people on Tamaran fully accept the duality of their lives, how to fight to win, with no compromises or excuses. Fighting with such unyielding rage is a violation here on Earth. And in truth, Starfire is more Earthling now than Tamaranian, meaning that she must accept the consequences of today's actions. Though she intended to do good, what she did was anything but. In a cruel twist of fate, Starfire finally sees things the way Dick wanted her to, but it has happened far too late. And so she weeps alone on a mountaintop, overlooking the lush land that she has plunged even further into chaos. News of Mandutu's assassination is blasted on the airwaves, with Starfire named as his killer, and all after allegedly agreeing to work with the government. A signed statement reads that Mandutu was about to push for the elimination of all firearms among his people. But his followers know better, and leading the charge against the government's claims are none other than Mandutu's widow. And she expects nothing less than the same government that sided with the Axis powers during World War II. But her impromptu history lesson is interrupted as Starfire lands before her. She submits herself to Mrs. Mandutu, confessing and surrendering. The crowd around her wants blood, and as they point to the image of Starfire cradling Mandutu's dead body on the television, they blame her again for attacking them during their attack on the informant. But while Starfire is ready to pay for the death of Mandutu, she refuses to apologize for helping that woman. In Kori's eyes, she still should have lived. Mrs. Mandutu believes her, just as she knows that her husband would never sign that phony document. But with no way to prove it, they are powerless. They are caught between a rock and a hard place. But Adia Mandutu is just like her husband Nelson. She believes that freedom cannot be won with a closed fist, only an open hand. Starfire asks how she can help, and Adia has just the idea. She believes that Starfire was tricked into blowing that building up, that all of this was staged, and if they can prove it, they can bring this most recent chapter of the conflict to an end without bloodshed. Again, she thinks of Dick Grayson and takes a page out of his playbook by thinking logically. She returns to the scene of her so-called crime and starts looking for clues, but her search turns up nothing. And in a brief display of rage, she blasts the rubble into even smaller pieces. On her way out, she spots a jeep of soldiers, forcing them to stop, and this time, she'll use their ignorance against them. She demands to know where the police computers are, and since they see her as a murderer, she knows that her threats will not be made in vain. For the smallest of her starbolts could melt these men to the bone, or she could simply fly into the sky and drop them. Their tunes quickly change, and Starfire grabs them just in the nick of time. Another move from Dick's playbook. Starfire heads to an office building and begins to search for the files that contain the information she needs. Though she's not quite sure what to look for, everything she finds is more fuel on the fire. But her rummaging soon catches the ears of a guard outside before she can find what she needs. So she quickly darts out the window and hovers in air. Even though she's not seen, the station is put on high alert. Starfire is confronted with her shortcomings. She's not a detective like Dick, and she's not logic-oriented like Donna or Victor, but she's got to try. She heads to the last place she thinks to look, the morgue. His death certificate lists his cause of death as burns. Reading this makes Starfire feel guilty all over again. All she can do now is apologize and pray that he can forgive her in the afterlife. But as she brings her tearful face closer to the father's, she discovers something, a bullet hole. Clearly this was not of her doing. All these people have called her a murderer, when in reality, it's the government that killed Mandutu. They must pay, perhaps even with their lives. But in another instant, Starfire composes herself. She can't let emotion get the better of her again. And after quelling her rage, she thanks the father for his lessons and his love. And she'll make sure that his life's work does not die with him. Starfire returns to Mandutu's village, only to find that all the people have left. They've gone to march in solidarity. But Starfire knows that that's what the government wants. Now they can destroy Mandutu's wife and his cause all at once. Adia leads a crowd of protesters, but a government helicopter flies overhead. The captain hopes that by following the protesters, he can provoke an attack, forcing them to retaliate and naming him a hero. But she tells the men that they are not here to seek revenge. This is a peaceful march. She's not merely marching in memory of her late husband. She is marching for her country, her beautiful but scarred country. Having heard enough defiance, the captain gives the order for the men to fire. But before a single turret can let off a round, Starfire intervenes. Even though the Tamaranian is sorely tempted to ignore her newfound limits, she grabs the captain and flies him high. But when she stops, she doesn't speak, she yells. Loud enough for the mics down on the ground to hear every word as the cameras continue to roll. With a clear, bold voice, she speaks the truth. They sought to eliminate their biggest political opponent and their new naive roadblock all at once by painting her as an assassin. Starfire's eyes are now fully open, and they will never close again. While the powerful may sit comfortable today, Starfire knows that such a system cannot sustain itself and will soon collapse under the weight of its own evil, a fitting end for any system built on racial supremacy. And as Starfire hovers suspended in the air, her golden figure illuminates the sky as a perfect symbol for Mandutu's message. Days pass. Aja informs Starfire that the government is prosecuting the captain. They claim he was working on his own. Starfire is skeptical, but Aja knows that the eyes of the world are watching, and eventually, even South Africa must change. And though they are still not free, the blacks of South Africa have gained much from this horrid ordeal. The princess offers to stay and help the others rebuild, to continue the work of her fallen friend Nelson Mandutu. But her true mission lies in spreading the truth, continuing to speak out against apartheid, so that others may come to see the truth just as she has. In this way, Starfire will honor the memory of her friend and the struggles of all the black people in South Africa, until the day comes when apartheid is no more.